So, you've learned the basics of Scrum. You've done the exercises. You get the general idea. Well, today, we're going to talk about what comes next. How do you take that classroom knowledge and actually use it in a real career? Let's get into it.
This quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. The rules, they seem so simple on paper, but trying to make it all work in the real world, well, that's a whole different story. That's where the real challenge and honestly, the real art of it begins.
Okay, so you've been in that nice, safe, controlled environment. But what happens when you're thrown into the deep end, into the messy, unpredictable world of a real company? Look, you've run the sprints. You know the difference between a product owner and a Scrum Master. You've got the foundation. But trust me, applying those principles in a big, complex organization, it's a completely different ballgame. And that brings us to the first huge real-world problem you're going to face. The reality is, most big, important products, they aren't built by just one Scrum team. They're built by a whole bunch of teams that all have to work together. So what do you do? How do you keep, say, 10 teams all moving in the same direction without it just turning into total chaos? You need a way to scale up. Let's look at a few of the most common ways to do that. The simplest place to start is something called a Scrum of Scrums. Just think of it as a meeting for the Scrum teams. Usually, a representative from each team, often the Scrum Master, gets together to talk about what's getting in their way and how they can help each other out. It's a pretty straightforward way to get everyone on the same page. Now, if that first approach feels a little basic, you've got LESS, which stands for Large-Scale Scrum. The whole idea here is minimalism. It tries to scale up the core ideas of Scrum without adding a ton of extra rules or meetings. The big focus is on getting all those teams to work from one single product backlog. And then you've got the heavyweight champion of scaling, SAFe. Look, when you've got hundreds of people, tons of departments, all trying to work together, you might need something more. SAFe gives you a really detailed, structured blueprint for how to get an entire massive company to be more agile. Okay, so knowing the frameworks is one thing, but you also have to learn to spot the traps, these anti-patterns that can totally wreck your progress. It's like walking through a maze, and you gotta know where the dead ends are. And the first monster in that maze has a perfect name for what it is: Zombie Scrum. It is every bit as lifeless as it sounds, and it's what happens when a team is just going through the motions. They do their daily stand-ups, they have their retrospectives, but there's no life in it. There's no actual desire to get better. It's just a dead process walking, where nobody is creating real value, and everyone's just kinda waiting for the clock to run out. All right, next up. There's a phrase, a two-word phrase, that should be a massive red flag for you. Anytime you hear this, an alarm bell should go off in your head, because it means something is broken. And that phrase is Scrum but. It sounds like this. Oh yeah, we use Scrum, but we don't have time for retrospectives. Or we use Scrum, but our managers still assign all the tasks. That but is the sound of a team skipping the most important parts, usually the parts that create accountability and actually make things better.
So how do you steer clear of the zombies and the traps? Well, it really all boils down to understanding the true role, the true mindset of a great Scrum Master. This is the secret sauce.
So let's get one thing crystal clear, because this is probably the biggest mistake people make. A Scrum Master is not, I repeat, not a project manager. Their job isn't to tell people what to do or track their hours. Okay, so if they're not a manager, then what are they? What is it they actually do all day? They're a servant leader, and that's not just some fluffy buzzword. It is the entire philosophy of the role. It means their number one job is to serve the team so that the team can do its best work. And this is what that actually looks like day to day. A great Scrum Master is focused on serving the team. They're constantly clearing roadblocks out of the way. They're coaching people, facilitating tough conversations, and protecting the team from distractions. They're not the hero, they're the ones who build an environment where the team can become the hero.
All right, you get the theory, you know how to scale it, and you got the mindset. The last piece of the puzzle is proving it. How do you validate all this knowledge for yourself and for future employers?
So let's do a quick pop quiz. This is a real sample question from the Professional Scrum Master Certification. Who is required to be at the daily Scrum? Take a look at the options. Think about it for a sec. The answer is B, just the development team.
And see, this is a brilliant question because it gets to the very heart of empowerment. The daily Scrum is the team's meeting for them. The Scrum Master makes sure it happens, but their attendance isn't mandatory. The meeting belongs to the people who are actually building the product. So, if you're thinking about getting certified, how do you get ready? First, you got to know the Scrum Guide backwards and forwards. Then, go online and take the free Scrum Open Assessment over and over until you're nailing 100% every single time. But here's the real key. Don't just memorize the rules. You have to understand why the rules exist. That's what separates good from great.
We've talked about scaling, dodging the pitfalls, and having the right mindset. You've basically got the map now to get from the classroom to a real career. So the only question left is, are you ready to take that first step?